Adam, I've been reading, again, Martin Luther King Jr., an amazing thinker on nonviolence. I mean, you want to talk about handling conflict in a way that is rooted in love and compassion for humanity. That's your guy. One of his pillars in his principles of nonviolence is beloved community, meaning beloved community leaves nobody out. The people that you don't understand, the people that scare you, the people that vote different than you, the people that want to actively harm you and your loved ones, even they belong to beloved community, because we all belong to humanity, right? That doesn't mean you need to like go and engage with them and put yourself in harm's way, but it also means leaving nobody out. So, I mean, I think, you know, I know what I need, and I know what I want, and I know how I wish to transmit spiritual teachings, and I'm going to go ahead and put my energy in creating that. And then also knowing that, you know, the other stuff is probably also going to serve certain people for a certain amount of time. And my only wish is that they wouldn't then quit Ashtanga yoga when they no longer feel a part of that community. You know what I'm saying? Because that's a pattern I see. Like, oh my God, I can't do these hard poses. I can't progress.
Do this anymore.
I'm done with Ashtanga. I quit. And that's sad to me, because it's like, it's not sustainable. Like in that
it's not
sense.
Sustainable.
Yeah.
And you might come to it, you know, and many people come to it and they think that's Ashtanga. Well, I came to it, and, you know, the first thing is I came into the class and I wasn't doing something right. And the first thing is I was told not to do this or that, or I, you know, I need to not talk, or I need to, right. And they, you know, whatever it is. And they think that's Ashtanga. What about radical anger? I mean, surely, you know, Martin Luther King Jr. or Sr. would say something about radical anger. I think this is important, right? And I really will, for my dying breath, you know, like, campaign against the dish of love being served cold. No, you know, like, it isn't, you know.
But it's really your choice. Like, are you going to eat the cold dish of love, or are you going to go to where it's warm?
If you want, if you want that,
you are in choice. You are choiceful about that.
Of course, you are. But maybe you, I mean, just to continue the metaphor, maybe you don't know where the hot food's served. Ooh. Maybe you only think the food is served cold, and you want hot food, and you happen to have only your only experience because you were so disappointed. You were so disappointed with the cold food, and you've given up. You saw that, and you're like, okay, I don't like food anymore. Yeah.
No, you make a very good point. And then again, going back to culture and our socialization as trauma response, what are the things in that cold love dish that are familiar to you that you go back to, not knowing that there's a whole banquet and buffet of love and warmth available for you. So that's an interesting point you make. And then just going back to our earlier conversation again, it's understanding and becoming familiar with and normalizing what trauma is. Going back to early childhood stuff, like inner child work, going back to early attachment stuff. What is it about this teacher that is triggering your early interactions with authority figures? You know, it goes that deep. And what is it about the role of teacher that seduces people so to give up their autonomy and give up their personal power and give up being able to advocate for yourself? You know, it can go deep, and having honest conversations about the fact that, you know, teacher is not mother, teacher is not father, teacher is human and wounded and going through their own stuff as well. So removing the need to put people on a pedestal, and that's tricky to do when you're in a community dynamic of that. So
certainly when it's bounded by certain terminology as well. I mean, you know, this idea of practice and all is coming, 99% practice. It's like, there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff to be done outside asana. It's like, well, you know, for some people, maybe the realization may be enough, you know, to be embodied in that manner is a strong enough experience. But for me and many others, I mean, luckily for me, I mean, I had, you know, I was the chef at the cold buffet. You know, I was the consummate chef at this cold buffet, dishing out this kind of mentality to people for years. And then shit went wrong in my life, you know, badly wrong. And that's the time when finally, you know, like, I had a reawakening and came, full circle to this kind of interest and stuff, and realized that it wasn't enough to be adept at asana, to be doing advanced B series or whatever rubbish that I was involved in obsessing about, that, to be honest, I mean, there's a lot of work that's to be done if you really want yoga. But I suppose it's that question is like, well, it's the $1 million question. When is the person ready to ask the questions? Right? Because the questions are always there. If we want to ask them, it's like, well, how deeply do you want to do your yoga? It's like, and how deeply do you want to inquire? When you step out the door and see someone on the street, or or see people, other people suffering in different ways, you're like, how does that relate to what you've done indoors?
Those are really good questions, and it really is. It's such a. It's going to depend on the individual, and maybe they will be, maybe they won't be, and creating a loving, warm space for them to go through their processes. Again, it's not about converting people. It's not about proselytizing. It's this is where I think a lot about past life and karma and reincarnation, and the fact that we are all, we can be guides for one another, we can be inspirations for one another, support for one another, sources of refuge and support for one another, and then witnessing each other's processes play out in this current manifestation. And it goes back a lot to the sense of this deep, deep longing and need to belong first to yourself and to belong to one another. This is inherent to our survival. Ashtanga yoga has been and can be and is a powerful way for people to feel like they belong. And hopefully the ways in which we belong are leading towards much more understanding and love, and again this radical idea of beloved community.
Just contextualizing belonging, so it's belonging within a community rather than defining yourself as a tribe.
That's right.
In belonging against all others that don't do it right, that don't follow vignettes accounts.
That
don't practice traditionally, right?
Yes,
right?
indeed.
Because that's to often be the way.
Yes,
right?
It's true. Yeah, you're out. You're not doing it this way. You're out. Yeah, you're not.
We belong here together.
Yes. And this is the dark side of empathy, where the in tribe are the ones that you empathize with, and those that are doing differently are, there is a dark side to empathy as well. And so, I would hope and wish that we can accept anybody's practice, however it looks like, whichever.
I don't think it's talking, and I've talked to to other people about this as well. A lot of it's language. A lot of it's language based, and the language cues are not only in the lead class, but even in the interactions within a Mysore room, in Mysore style with the teacher, and how you frame the language. You were talking. I've heard you talk about. What are we using it for? Are we using it simply to be comfortable, which is, and that's important? Or are we also using it for conflict, right? And then how do we frame our cues and our interactions? So it's not all got to be yogic, and that means, kind of like a lot of bypassing, a lot of whitewashing,
Right.
Whilst still making it seem like someone could show up as themselves and be accepted.
Yeah. I mean, and I will say one thing about language, and I've been thinking a lot about this because, being in Finland, which, Helsinki is an English speaking city. The mayor of Helsinki declared it so. I can use English very comfortably here, but at the same time, it is not a necessarily English speaking country. It has Finnish and Swedish. And I will just say, noticing the immense language privilege I have around being a native English speaker and being able to use my first language in my work and life here, that language is important. It's absolutely. And at the same time, you can say all the right things and still have this misalignment in your deeper motivation and deeper healing and deeper own personal stuff. So I say all that to say language is important, but also not to get too caught up with language orthodoxy, because that can be another way of virtue signaling. Like, I know how to say all the right things, but I actually haven't applied them, and I haven't really done that deeper values shift. So even if a teacher maybe is using, not the most up-to-date words, it's like, look around you and see, like, are the people able to be autonomous? Are they feeling safe? Are they able to communicate with a teacher in a way that is non-hierarchical and the power is diffused? What is the current atmosphere in the class, rather than, oh my God, they said modification instead of option? You know what I'm saying? Because then that just gets into, we start policing one another and all this like sense of, that judgment. So it's like taking it all within the wider, bigger context of how are these bodies experiencing the yoga in the space, in the presence of the teacher and the container that they have created, rather than, I have to say this and not that. And I just say that because I do notice a lot my language privilege.
And it's very interesting. I mean, I had an interesting experience when I interviewed Stephen Porges of the polyvagal theory. Right,
nice. Oh, okay.
Just to realise, we've done one, and it's very, very popular. You have to listen to it.
I will.
Very nice guy.
It's amazing.
The first thing he said, I said I used to turn the camera off for it was apparently better video quality. Okay. And I mentioned this to him, and he said, "I'm no interest in doing an interview if the camera is turned off."
Nice.
And I said, really, I mean, I was obviously a little bit taken aback, first of all, but he's the most gentle and sweet guy in the first place. So the context of the statement was also a different context, right?
Yes,
it wasn't just what he said.
Yeah.
But that belied his general feelings towards language, which was, it's part of a picture, but there's many, many other signals, There's many, I mean, most of what we convey to each other is non-verbal.
No, I love that.
I mean, although we're going through many different, kind of like options and possibilities here.
That's right.
It's to say there's no one magic pill here, right? It's a combination of so many conscious and less conscious reflexes and actions that we're taking to one another. And I mean, it's just, all we're trying to do here is just kind of bring these questions to light more for individuals. But I mean, I suppose, to round this little bit off, I mean, what I would say is that to each individual, that responsibility is a personal mantle if one's interested to take it up, to become aware for one's part. I mean, like, you can listen, you can hear, but it is a constant vigilance to adopt this as one owns, as one owns conduct,
Absolutely.
What about, before we wind down, and what about use of adjustments? I mean, because we're talking about Ashtanga, we're really talking about a system which is formulated on physical, let's say, what we call it, assists now. We used to call them adjuststants, right?
Now they're
assists. You're wrong, and you need to be adjusted to right. It's like, we don't say that anymore.
Let's correct you. Yeah.
Yes, I'm still a bit old school, how might we use adjustments, or how might we look at adjustments going forward? Going forward now, when we realise we're not chiropractors, the body doesn't necessarily open by being battered to hell.
That's right. Yeah.
And we still need them.
Yeah. Yeah. I look at it in different ways. Bear in mind, I have learned to give adjustments. Petri. I've studied with him and learned his method. Petri is known.
Your partner, husband. Yeah.
Yes. Petri is known.
People don't know. Yeah.
No,
he's known for adjustments.
He's known for the therapeutic assists, right? He comes from a Finnish folk healing yoga therapy background, and so people do go to him for the physical assists, right? I went through this whole thing, back in 2017. I was like, oh my goodness, I need the consent chips. Certainly in the continuing education I've done to become trauma-informed yoga teacher or practitioner / facilitator. I'll say this: when I'm teaching a class that's not Ashtanga based, to a group of people that I don't really know and are sort of coming in and out, I don't give adjustments in that situation because I don't know them, they don't know me, and there's not really the space to make the conversation and container for physical assists. In Ashtanga practice, in the Mysore room, certainly consent, that's now a non-negotiable. Asking every time. And it doesn't have to be long and drawn out, but do you want help? Do you not? Cool. Like just a tiny little, like just consent check is super important. Yes, every time. Cannot assume, even if you know somebody, you can't assume what they need and don't need on any given day in the same practice, right? And then, giving assists for the purpose of therapy, for the purpose of release, for the purpose of creating space, not for the purpose of fixing your pose or even going deeper in the pose, and certainly not for the purpose of correcting, but with the idea of therapy in mind. You know, I'm also a massage practitioner, so I mean, obviously I can't start to do what I do in massage, but having that sense of sensitivity and that sense of wanting to provide space and openness so the person can experience themselves in the pose in a way that communicates care and, again, space. So giving assists for the purpose of creating more space and relaxation. It's a very different motivation. It's not like I'm not going to start I love silent, quiet as possible Mysore rooms, because that's prayer. That's you go and you touch into that which is deep and true and real and everlasting in you. I don't want to be hearing, a 15-minute physiotherapy session. And I know, and again, different strokes for different folks. That might work. That might, people who are more skilled in communicating verbally, that can work. But for me, and what I like is that quiet, that space. I don't want the Mysore room to feel like a bus station. It gets in the way of communicating with the divine for me.
You've thrown down the gauntlet now. Yeah. We're strongly in the clutches of anatomical yoga these days. And,
my goodness. No, I mean, I just remember practicing with Sharmila.
A little bit against it.
Yeah. No, just with Sharmila Desai, and the space and the quiet. It's so thick. And then you can access just different parts of reality when you're in a room and it's quite dark. There's light, there's candles around, there's other people around. You're feeling that collective energy and it's so quiet. You can really begin to commune with different subtle realities that speech, and again, speech is beautiful. I love mantra chanting, I love sound, but there's a time and a place for everything. And I miss those deeply quiet Mysore rooms. I really do.
I suppose it comes to my last point. I would say, how does space relate to current progress-centered notions of practice that are endemic and unfortunately almost forced upon us with social media, and space and an adjustment is very different to progress and adjustment. And adjustment has always been traditionally framed in, you're not here and we're going here, or, that's not as deep as a posture, as you would like to make, or I, as a teacher, would like you to make, because I'm unfortunately too interrelated in your own progress, which is often the case as well, right? So, I mean, you do talk about visualization, and inner visualization as opposed to outer visualization in terms of we're so over oriented with our eyes now. It's an eye culture. It's
totally.
And we've got a whole bunch of senses. You're talking about space. I'm sure you're not just talking about physically having more space in terms of a lengthening or right, an opening. It's something slightly deeper than that.
Yeah, I mean, that's a, finding length and deepening in the physical body is going to create space and deepening and lengthening in your mind, in your emotional body, which will then be able to have us be a bit more able to perceive subtle realms and more subtle realities. So it's all interrelated. I think space and progress in an asana are not necessarily mutually exclusive. So we don't have to be too worried that it's a binary. the more people can relax around Kapotasana physically, the more they can relax around the expectation of it emotionally and mentally. You know, if we're relaxed in going into Kapotasana and being like, it's okay, I don't have to fear, you know, generally, physically, the body will be able to respond in a way that is more expansive and open, rather than like, oh my God, I'm so scared, I have to catch the heels, and you know, that creates this contraction. So I don't remember what your original question was, but I do like this idea of you know, everything is as well an interplay of contraction and expansion, contraction and expansion. So being open and sensitive to the interplay of both. Contraction is not bad. Expansion is not like you know, I mean, it does play into as well the gunas, right? That we wish to create the causes and condition for the more sattvic state of mind to come up, because then we are receptive to receiving wisdom and knowledge. And we don't want to get too caught up in maintaining everything sattvic, because then that comes in the spiritual bypass and we start to get trapped in our own notion of goodness and what is a good practice and peaceful and everything peaceful. But that's not nature, that's not reality. We have the Rajoguna and the Tamoguna. Tyson said violence is part of the manifestation. So how are we working with this interplay and swirl of energies with the idea that we try to create the causes and conditions for auspiciousness to come about, if anything, for our own protection. Yeah.
All right, where can people continue this work with you? I mean, are you doing any particular thing that you can point people towards?
Yeah, currently? I'm doing a lot.
Yeah, okay. Or any other. I mean, you mentioned a couple of books. Any other resources that you might give?
You got me on that one. Well, here, this is the book that's on my. This is the
Rachel Wooten, Tara. Okay.
Yes. I practice with this Tibetan Buddhist deity around. Talk about visualization.
Tara. Yeah.
Tara. So
yeah,
I started Tara Sadhana in 2020 as a way to begin to understand and deepen my trust in that which is not seen, in the unseen, and so I continue to do that. That's something I recommend if people want to. I do Tara Sadhana in any of our offerings, but yeah, all my stuff is on my Linktree, on my Instagram, Wellness with Wambui. My website, wambuijuguna.com.
Right. Well, thanks for coming on again. A nice little dynamic chat and
this
many
was nice,
interesting
Adam.
kind of segues to pursue for people. But listen to it, imbibe it, and then I think the bottom line is there's no one way, and think and question for oneself, you know. And,
absolutely. And I just want to say, Adam, I just really appreciate you and the work you're doing to have conversations with all manner of people. So yeah, just appreciate you staying in the conversation for longer term. So
yes, staying in the longer term is not always easy. It's not easy.
No,
but
it's not.
I'm committed to doing so.
Yes,
right?
you are. That's great.
Yeah, thank you.
Keep it up.
And thank you for your part. Thanks for coming on. It's been lovely to talk to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.